And Ben, as Patrick said, is the president and CEO of Living Cities. He is also the final selection committee member and is going to be giving us a keynote. And if you don't know about Living Cities, it's a collaborative of 18 of the world's leading foundations, such as the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Ford and Rockefeller Foundations, as well as financial institutions like Bank of America, Prudential, and Citigroup, who work together to boldly fight poverty in America's cities. And I can tell you that under Ben's leadership, the organization has done a lot of groundbreaking work. They have established new data-driven model of social change that brings together local businesses, government, philanthropic, and community leaders to disrupt long obsolete systems and focus on achieving needle-moving results. And they are putting equity at the focus of all of that, and I'm sure Ben will speak a little bit to it. The organization's $40 million loan fund has been selected as one of the world's top 50 impact investment funds for 6 consecutive years. It's a network of local public sector leaders from 40 cities, is spreading and adopting new culture of municipal innovation and reimagining the relationship between government and citizens. And he is also the author of Reclaiming the American Dream, Proven Solutions for Creating Economic Impact for All. And Louisville has a profile in that book. So Ben, come on up and give us some wisdom.
Thank you. Good evening. Hello? Hello. It's like 6 o'clock at night. You got to bring some energy to the room, friends. So thank you, Teresa. And there is nothing better than to be introduced by one of the great leaders of Louisville, which is Teresa Reno Weber. So thank you for that. It's great to work with you over all these years as well. I'll see if I can use the clicker. I can. Fantastic. So we're making progress already. This is good news. So like Teresa said, for the last 28 years, 18 of the world's largest foundations and financial institutions have come together to pool their loans, their grants, and their influence to do what they can't do on their own, which is really try to create and spread economic opportunity in America's cities. And for our first 15 years, we started in the early 90s. We came together really to build an affordable housing industry, an affordable housing sector. And working through 2 national intermediaries, LISC and Enterprise, some of you may know them, and community groups in 23 cities around the country, we were able to bring $2 billion of our money to these communities, leveraged into $20 billion. Helped to develop or redevelop 350,000 units of housing, millions of units of square feet of commercial space, all these great numbers. Impressive, they look really good on grant applications and the like. And we learned a lot in doing that work, but one thing that we learned that we had to take really seriously is that housing is necessary, but not sufficient. And that is really part of what this challenge is about, which is why I'm excited to come and be able to keynote here and to be on the selection committee. Over that time of those 15 years that we focused primarily on housing, and really over the past 40 years, what we've seen is that the disparities across the country in almost every category have gotten worse and not better, especially for people of color. And so those of you, you know these statistics, but it's important to remind you. When it comes to income, Black Americans make 59 cents, Latinx Americans make 72 cents to every dollar that white people make. Education, while only 39% of Americans have a post-high school degree, it's less than half of that for people of color. And when it comes to wealth, which is what we all know is how you change intergenerational poverty, people of color have a dime to $1.50 that white people have. And what that really turns into really is if people of color have about $10,000 of equity, largely from their home, wealth largely from their home, while white families have about $150,000. And so about 12 years ago, the collaborative took a big step forward and said, what we want to do is, can we revitalize places as well as change the economic trajectory of people? And so for the last 12 years, we've been investing in doing that around the country. And in so doing, I've had the chance to travel everywhere, including a bunch to Louisville, and to see good ideas that are happening across the country. Some of them you'll hear tonight. And what I've been able to see are patterns. I always say I have the greatest job in the world because I basically am paid to recognize patterns. And when something lands in one place and never lands anywhere else, that's not a pattern, that's a one-off. But when things have landed in one place and then another and another, that's something that really could happen everywhere. And so as I've gone around the country, I've seen local leaders, private, public, philanthropic, tired of the dysfunction that's happened in Washington and sometimes in state capitals, not mentioning any state in particular, that they've started to solve these problems explicitly for people of color in their communities. But what we've found is that when you do that, it solves for all. Often with philanthropy seeding innovation and technology helping to spread the ideas. You'll hear a bunch about technology in the pitches as well tonight. And so I wrote my book that Teresa talked about. Race is a big part of it. I wrote this book, Reclaiming the American Dream, so people could see what I've seen. That over the past 10, 12 years, we already have many of the solutions that we need to bring economic mobility and opportunity to millions of Americans right now, and to show people that what they could do to make a difference in their communities. Reclaiming the American dream means making the country work both for those who always expected it to work for them, people who look like me, as well as, and more importantly, for those who actually gave up hope or never thought it was meant for them, people of color. The book is a blueprint for overcoming the barriers that we need at these mutually reinforcing issues. So we know we have to increase education. We know we have to increase income. We know we actually have to build wealth, oftentimes through home ownership. We know we actually help to get people connected to opportunity, like Teresa talked about earlier. But we also know, and this is one thing that Louisville, I talk about this a lot in the book, has really focused on, is that we actually have to re-knit our social fabric so citizens actually care about each other, not just today, but tomorrow. And it's all of those that have to happen in a place. Like I said before, these aren't one-off solutions that I talk about. They've been done in tens, hundreds, sometimes thousands of places. I literally made sure that they weren't happening on the West Coast and the East Coast, but everywhere else in America where change happens and has to happen. It's not about tweaking the current systems. It's actually, or just working a lot harder. It's about, or even adding a new financing tool, like some people love opportunity zones, or an impact investment fund. Those are good, those are important, but it's talking about building a new normal. So our systems, again, like Teresa said, actually work for everyone, because right now they don't. And what's promising, and hopefully when you read the book, you'll see, is that we've been building these new normals all over the country for the last 10, 15 years. And these approaches are actually low-hanging fruit that could help millions of people right now. I want to give you two examples, then I want to stop. So the first example involves potentially 15 million kids. So we know there's a huge amount of data that says that every year post-high school that somebody completes adds $250,000 to their annual to their lifetime earnings every year. And so you would think that if there were strategies that could do that right away, that we would be doing them. And so the good news is there are. The bad news is they're not being done enough. And what they are these early college high schools, which is in more, in more than 250 high schools around the country. Kids are graduating with a high school degree and a college degree at the same time. And for free. So you hear all of this conversation about getting rid of college debt, college should be free. We actually know how to do it. We've done it in 200 plus high schools. We've done it in 24 states. Yeah. But there's 15 million students and 28,000 high schools, right? It's one of those solutions. Let me give you one more. So different decisions that are made by private investors right now could be adding 1 million new good-paying jobs in America. And a lot of times you hear talk about job destruction, about artificial intelligence and robots. And the reality is technology has always destroyed jobs in America. And that's part of what makes the economy so dynamic. What people don't focus enough on, except for people like Allie and Village Capital and others, is that we actually have to focus on job creation. And what's happened is our job creation machine is broken, largely because it was built for white people who have income and wealth. And you saw the data that shows that our systems have created no income and wealth for people of color. Yet they're the fastest growing population in our country. And so what's happening around the country is people are intentionally investing in that. Private investors in the last decade have put more than $330 million into private equity, venture capital firms like Village Capital, like others I talk about in the book. $330 million, not a bad start. But last year alone, $30 billion went to venture capital around the globe. So it's a start, but it's not nearly enough. We literally need a new system, a new normal that gets capital in large numbers to the people who need it, who we need for creating jobs. I could keep going, example after example of ways that we know how to do this. But there's no silver bullet. We wish there were. What it really takes is multiple mutually reinforcing issues and approaches to intentionally create economic opportunity for those who need it. Fundamentally, what I've seen is that we need each one of us, you, me, elected officials, CEOs, and the like, to change our behaviors. It turns out all of the examples in my book, not a single one of them need a law or regulation to be changed for these strategies to be implemented in their communities. It just takes leadership. It literally, my favorite slide. I always forget I have these great slides. This is my favorite slide. It's really literally about leading from wherever you sit. If you're a mayor, if you're a CEO, if you're a citizen, if you're a parent, if you're a superintendent of school, if you're an investor, you're making different decisions for a different result. And it turns out it is a full contact sport. You have to intentionally decide you're going to do it, and then you need to do it. The America we really want simply requires us to act and change our behavior. We need to have a humility to know how hard the problems are to solve, but the hubris to believe that our personal agency, our personal contribution will actually make a difference. Each of us needs to just go and do it starting now. And we can reclaim the American dream, and you can learn more about it if you text 474747, reclaim to 474747, and put yourself in to win a free copy of the book. Thank you very much.